Welcome to Marketing Mindshare, the podcast that brings you into the world of the top marketing minds from Fortune 500 companies to scrappy small and medium-sized business marketers. Together, we'll explore the leading strategies today's marketing leaders deploy. I'm your host, DeCarlo, and now let me take you into the Marketing Mindshare. Welcome, Sal Conca, to the Marketing Mindshare podcast. I'm really excited to have you as my guest today. You're actually guest number 2 that we're having.
Awesome. I feel honored. It's a pleasure to speak with you, Dean. We've known each other for a long time, so glad to see your career and the way it's taken shape. And I'm excited to talk today.
Absolutely. I love talking with veteran marketers. And obviously, to give you a better introduction, you are the Chief Marketing Officer of Holy Grail Steaks. You are also the host of the Big Food Talk podcast. So I know you have miles and miles of experience ahead of me. I checked it out this morning and you have 49 episodes. That's quite the accomplishment.
We have a lot. That was something that got started right during COVID. It started last April. Right now, with my new role as at Holy Grail Steaks, I put the podcast on pause. So we'll say season 1 is wrapped and I'm waiting to relaunch season 2. It's all about supporting local Long Island food businesses, particularly restaurants, but other food manufacturers. As you know, maybe you don't know, I'm a member of the Long Island Food Council. So yeah, I'm highly involved in the food segment as much
I
as
love
possible.
that because although I'm not necessarily a foodie marketer by trade, we represent like a lot of e-commerce companies, but not so much in food. I know you're part of that world, and I love food. So I mean, your job must be really exciting, being able to represent different CPG brands or different restaurant brands and helping them get out there. I'd also imagine it's pretty challenging too in the last year.
Absolutely. And it's something that kind of evolved over time, like many people and their skill sets and their passions and things like that. Right. And I've always been trying to find these ways to blend my true passions. And it's just, a long time ago, I think I wrote a LinkedIn description. Hell, it might even still be up there now. And it was like, if you had to analyze my brain, I'm very much split right down the middle. It's, left brain, right brain. I have this highly creative, passionate side and all that type of stuff, but I'm also very analytical and mathematical driven. So I just have this war in my head all the time between
Absolutely.
creativity and analytics. So
Does that do you think the needs change from, let's just say, a restaurant to more of a CPG brand or like a food brand like Holy Grails? Like, what do you feel is there something that the restaurants need that the CPG brands need that are completely different? Like, what does that look like?
1,000%. I mean, it's completely different animal. In terms of if we break down, acquisition marketing versus retention marketing, right? I mean, they both need customers, but those customers look very different, right? The person that purchases online a food product, whether it's, mailed to their home or a subscription service or something of that nature, is going to have a completely different persona compared to the person who's dining out at a restaurant, whether that's for a special occasion or because they're just an avid Italian restaurant lover and they go every Friday night, like my parents go to Mama Teresa's at East Meadow
Right.
every week, right? They got their table and their whole thing. So the marketing and what needs to be done in order to create awareness, right? Build a funnel. We have to still do the same things, but they look very different, right? So
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it was a really great move on Holy Grail Steaks' part to bring you on because you have a really good understanding that there are distinct differences between people going to get something to eat and then the people who now want to order food, have that delivered to them. But why don't we go a little bit about your role at Holy Grail Steaks, what you guys are doing, and what it's like to jump into a high growth company, switching from that restaurant industry, going into a high growth company, and then using your skills in marketing to help grow that company.
yeah, so I think it was you have to jump in both feet at the same time. There's no like training period. There's no training wheels, right? I mean, and also I've been doing this for a long time, so it's not like I'm taking on a role that I'm not familiar with. But at the same time, this company's already moving. We're doing, hundreds of orders a month, thousands of orders a month, right? Because of the effects of COVID, businesses like Holy Grail Steak have been met with enormous growth because of people ordering food at home. We all know e-commerce growth accelerated. I don't know what the multiple is, but exponentially since COVID started, right? And
I've
so
I've read that it's accelerated growth by 5 years.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
So
something absolutely crazy.
yeah, exactly. So these companies end up in a position. So they were also doing a great job, by the way, prior to this, because they have a PR agency. They were already getting, the CEO is a veteran CEO, has owned businesses before. He's a veteran in the wine industry. His name is Cameron Hughes. We actually have a wine business as well on top of that called Day Negotiate. And
Oh,
so
very interesting.
we've run businesses. He's run businesses before. I've been a CEO before. I have my own burgeoning food brand, Big Lou's Onion Sauce, right? So we've all
Love it.
kicked the tires before, and we know how to do these things and get something off the ground. But they're 3 years in, right? They started this business in 2018, and now it was that exponential growth that put them on the next level. And so a whole different set of marketing tactics need to happen, because now instead of acquiring customers, you need to figure out how to nurture the customers that you have. You've grown this email list, people have shopped with you before, and that whole positioning around communicating, creating a dialogue with your customers, and making them understand your products in a different way, right? They came in for one reason or another. They saw the press release, they saw a Facebook ad, they tested the product, right? They bought from you once. Now what? How do you make them loyal, repeat customers? And that's really, the challenge with a company that's in a high growth mode like that and has a customer base. It's all about this retention marketing now.
And that's super important too, because there is something that our audience might not know. But Holy Grail Steaks, like these are very like this is a luxury steak company, right? These aren't like the chops that you're going to be able to get at your local supermarket, right?
No, no, these are what we're doing. These steaks are normally reserved for the top Michelin star restaurants in the nation. And as we know, the
Wow.
restaurants are, suffering greatly, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, that also means the producers, right? So a lot of our steaks and beef come from Japan. It's called Japanese Wagyu, Japanese A5 Wagyu beef. And
Wow.
so this is the pinnacle, right? There is only a certain amount of cattle that produce this type of beef per year, and so it becomes a very rare commodity. I mean, we have steaks on the site. You can buy a Kobe strip for $349.
Wow.
Right. So that's one steak experience. And so normally you would go to like a Wolfgang Puck's restaurant or somewhere else that you would dine out and you would experience that, whether that's with a client meeting, a special occasion, these types of things. But now dollars have shifted all over the place, right? Other businesses are flourishing as well. The butcher boxes of the world, all the subscription services, other competitors of ours, right? The whole industry, it's not just Holy Grail, the whole industry has been elevated.
So the idea with a luxury type product, when you're in that gifting, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with gifting, not
Have
people
a
just
look.
buying, customer lifetime value is probably one of the most important things because there's only so many customers that want that slice of meat or even maybe even aware, educated on what that experience is like.
Absolutely. So customer lifetime value was one of the first things I explored when I came into the role. So I it was a exercise that had to be done to understand how to properly allocate our marketing dollars, what's working, what's not, so you can confidently spend on those acquisition costs, because our acquisition costs are way higher to find this luxury consumer, people that can afford this type of steak and want to experience this type of meal at home. It's a different type of customer for sure. And I think, for me it was understanding, I wanted to get a budget in place, right? So in order to get that budget and justify wanting to spend on Facebook ads, PR, content marketing, email marketing, all the other things that get chopped up along the way, Google ads, YouTube, taboola, whatever it is, right?
Right.
All the entire marketing stack, so to speak. In order to do that, you have to be able to prove it out and say, this is what our customers' lifetime value is worth. These customers are going to spend with us X amount of times per year, which means even if I cost me this much for that first sale, they're going to do this over the 1 year and then exponentially over 3, 5 years, right?
So this is super important because a lot of marketers, this goes over their head. Sometimes it's not just about having, even when you have a cost per acquisition, the idea is sometimes that in marketing, you will eat, sometimes you might be, the profit margin might be 5% on, like, let's say a Facebook ad on a customer. But what people don't realize is that over time, the lifetime customer value that they can get out could be exponential. So you kind of have that loss leader.
Yeah.
So this is kind of important. Like, if I'm a marketer that needs to explore if customer lifetime value is something that I need to well, you definitely should factor into your marketing. Where do I start? Like, what does that process look like at a very, like, high level?
Sure. And I'll say there's two types of businesses, right? One, if you're a startup, it's very difficult to do, right? So that's where as a consultant, where I was, a year or two ago, in the last 7 years of my life, when I was working with a lot of startup businesses, they don't have that data. They don't have enough, right? So you're making your best guess efforts to what that lifetime value may be, and looking at other indicators like customer acquisition costs, because you have cash and you're burning through cash, right?
Right.
But now when you have a business that is cash flow positive, right? Sales are coming in regularly and you have enough data to analyze. You start with segmenting those customers. So what we did is we created three different tiers of customers. Our gold customers, who are, like, let's say, our most loyal. They spend the most, they buy the most, they purchase the most expensive products, whatever it is, right? So we looked at that tier first. Then we had which created a nice segment of customers. Let's say it's 20% of our customers fit in
Okay.
that gold tier, right? Then we have the bulk. You got that middle section, right? Maybe they purchase with us 2 times a year, and they hit our average AOV that matches the rest of our customer base, right? And all that type of stuff. So that's our silver base of customers that makes up that meaty bulk, right? They're transacting all the time, but they're sitting at that, maybe just we need to move them into the gold segment,
Hmm.
right? The goal is to figure out how do we take each segment and move them to a different position, because now I can market to them differently. And then we have the people who are just those first time customers. They've dipped their toe in. Their AOV isn't quite right where our other customers are. Maybe they just purchased one product, it was a gift, they spent a little bit of money, per se, but they didn't really engage with the brand enough over the last year, right? They haven't purchased an order in 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, whatever that. So for any business, right, you need to understand, one, what is your AOV for each of these segments? What is your repurchase rate for each of these segments, right? If you're a subscription business, it's every 30 days, right? Or whatever the case may be. But for a business like this, who's purchasing a high end product, how much did they purchase? Are they stocking up for 6 months, or are they running out of steak in 6 weeks? So you have to understand that, so that way you can time your messaging. And what messaging I'm talking about is mostly email marketing. Um,
Right.
so now I can make all my messages contextual to each of those segments.
Right. And have it in some type of automation strategy so that your team doesn't have to do that manually.
Absolutely correct.
That's a really great breakdown and way to think about it, putting it into three different personas, if you will, segments. Um,
Some businesses may have more, right? I mean, it just and it just depends. And it's so I think those three, because anything, we all know we get distracted by too many things, right? So if you can at least segment your customer base into three, that'll give you a good foundation. But there's definitely, you can go micro segmenting all over the place. So
right. So do you have a favorite tool to help you do these things? Like, are you using Google Analytics? Are you using a combination of different tools? Like, where's that starting point?
so they're a Shopify Plus business, right?
Right.
And Shopify provides a ton of data. They don't, I don't, Shopify's dashboards are okay. They don't do a
Yeah.
great deal of analysis, right? So just pulling that data out, it was some rough, raw spreadsheets in Excel, right? Nothing
Getting
too
into the
fancy.
weeds of it, getting into the trenches.
Yep, absolutely. So you get in there, get your hands dirty, right? Dig through all this data, thousands of lines of data, using your pivot tables, all the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Figuring it out, getting your segments, and then you come up with some gold, and then you run with it, right? You run with what you think is right, and then you analyze and test, and you start to develop the messaging around that, and you develop the campaigns, your win back campaigns, your welcome series campaigns, your abandoned cart campaigns, right? And a lot of these are automated flows. And I think I mentioned Klaviyo already, but Klaviyo is, an email marketing service provider that connects directly with Shopify. They make a ton of this. So I don't want to use the word easy, but the automations become less cumbersome.
Right.
than some
Yeah.
other marketing platforms.
Absolutely. It's 100% not easy. It's a ton. It really is a full-time job. You like the ability to test things and do that at scale. It takes a ton of time. I mean, the largest luxury gift companies like 1-800-Flowers and their family of brands, like they have whole departments, right? And they're a 1 point something billion-dollar gift company. They have whole departments dedicated to email marketing and SEO, PPC. It's definitely a lot, but the idea though is that you are identifying the customers that are going to spend the most. And instead of finding new customers now, you're just siphoning more lifetime value out of the existing customers that are really happy and trying to figure out how to make them those gold customers.
That's correct. We launch different programs all the time. Like we just introduced our Steak Futures program, and the idea behind the Steak Futures program were these really rare cuts that not necessarily meaning expensive, but rare or seasonal cuts. Like we introduced a corned beef for St. Patrick's Day, but we're allowing people to pre-order it, right? So now that when we segmented that email to our best customers, I mean, I can't even, I wish I could share numbers, but I mean, I can
Right.
tell you, we're practically out of corned beef. I mean, we're out of it, right? So it proof in case that the segmenting works, targeting the right message to the right people works, timing of all this stuff where and it's super important. And it doesn't mean you forget the funnel. You still have to constantly bring in new customers, right? So then it becomes that balance of, as you analyze your data over time, what is that split between on a rolling 12-month basis, what is my repeat customer versus new customer rate, and which one do I value more? Right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. And so, because companies get caught in the hamster wheel of constant acquisition, right? I think they continue to pour money down certain channels, right? And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just that there is a lot of value when you're talking about profitability in a company. So your profitability is going to come from those existing customers, right? And they maintain your cash flow. So,
Right.
and allow you the ability to go out and explore and do other campaigns on acquisition. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I think email is it's starting to get looked over now, but especially with text message marketing coming out. Everybody wants to be on social now, even though it's been around for you know, more than a decade. Apparently, Facebook and Instagram ads are kind of new for a lot of companies. But
mhm.
email marketing is just so important because it provides that base. So I really love the way that you're going about it because it's like, hey, let's get our base in first. Let's figure out how we can keep getting more value out of our existing customers. And then, like you said, don't ignore that funnel, but start exploring that afterwards so that when you get more people in, you really are making that marketing dollar. You're stretching it as far along as it possibly can.
That's right. It's confidence in that spend on that marketing spend then, right? Because I know I have a system in place that's going to nurture that lead. People throw the terms around all the time. You listen to, what does it mean to nurture a lead, right? What does that mean? It means creating contextual messaging, that you're not just blasting your entire list with here's today's sale, right? That's not what this is about. And
Right.
you need to educate along the way, introduce new products. Like we said with like the Steak Futures program we introduced literally like a week ago. So all these things are crucial to the lifeblood of the business.
Absolutely. So when you are analyzing that creative, is this on a seasonal basis? Is this on a weekly basis, a monthly basis? Like, what is the expectation that as marketers that we have to put forward to the C-suite in terms of the effort that's going to go in?
Sure. And can you refine the question? You're saying analyzing the creative itself?
Yeah, yeah. So for instance, like let's say you come out with this futures stake program, right?
Mhm.
You obviously have to create an email funnel or email sequence, right? That goes with that. Is it a set it and forget it kind of game, or in a week do I have to look back at that, or maybe do I have to look at it in like 3 months? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, from start to finish, right? I mean, I work really closely with our operations manager, right? Head of operations. He's a partner in the company, Michael Coggins. And, we work really closely on these projects. So it was his baby, right? It was his thing that he's been championing for a while. And so it was like, well, it starts with, well, how much stock are we going to have? What is the landing page going to look like? What is the messaging forward that we're going to just even put forth to the public? Where are we going to release? So, right, it's that whole planning and strategy process around what does this particular program look like? Right.
Okay.
And how are we going to get attention to it? And it was like, yeah, let's test it on our existing customers first. Right. Now that I've seen that data, well, I'm pretty confident that if I put this out to the world, we're going to convert pretty good. Right. Like,
Right.
so we know that the proof of concept worked, right? Because this one in particular was proof of concept. So that proof of concept works. And now I think you got to let it breathe a little bit. You got to let it do its thing. And you can't be making changes every second. You can't be micro analyzing and changing things every couple of days and, well, tweak this, tweak that. I mean, we all have so much data, right? But you have to let campaigns and messaging and collect enough data to make smart decisions. So over time, I mean, yeah, I think 30 days, and I'll take a step back. It depends on your order volume and your traffic
Right.
volume, right? So if you have enough data, I mean, if you go gangbusters in a day and have a viral event, I mean, you may have enough data, but it's also an anomaly, right? So you
Right.
gotta let things breathe. You have to let things breathe. And so we analyze on a regular basis. I mean, I don't think there's any formula for it necessarily on when we analyze something. I think it's when we have a key initiative to say, well, we're looking to grow in this segment, or we want to change this, or we think we could do more with stake futures, or whatever it may be, whatever campaign it might be, that we can bring to the table something new. We use tools like a rebate that give us complete insight into our funnel, as opposed to Google Analytics, right? So I can see full on attribution, what's happening to each funnel, for stake futures page versus Japanese Wagyu customers versus American Wagyu customers. And I can see everything, how they convert through the funnel, which pages are converting better, if they're coming from organic search, or they're coming from Facebook, or they're coming from email. So you can see all of this.
That's true data at scale. And you get that with a lot of channels. Like we try to tell our customers too, like when we come out with a Google ad strategy or a Facebook ad strategy, it's not that you want to make a change 3 times in a week or 2 weeks. Like you really have to let that bake. You have to get data because what happened February 14th could be very different than happened on February 28th. Case in point, Valentine's Day. Those are the anomalies that you're talking about, where sometimes it's really hard. You can make a rash decision as a marketer and it could really negatively impact what you're doing. You have to let some time go pass by for sure.
Absolutely. My eyes are completely wide open all the time because I'm always interested. I mean, Shopify, I got to tell you, as far as gamification goes, I have my Shopify alerts on. So I see every time an order comes in.
Right.
But honestly, I'm qualitatively, not quantitatively, but qualitatively looking at that data all the time. I look at that customer, I see, are they first time or multiple purchase? I look at, if they're multiple purchase, when was the last time they placed an order? So you're constantly reinforcing it as a marketer in my head. I'm always understanding, yep, makes sense. Yep, their last purchase. And then there's other things, like honestly with the stake futures, it brought a lot of people back that hadn't purchased in longer than our normal span of time. So that was really interesting qualitatively. I didn't analyze anything in a spreadsheet. I just saw it anecdotally through the Shopify orders, like as I'm looking at them, and I can understand that, wow, this person hasn't placed an order since last March. But
Absolutely.
so it's interesting to see. And that matters a lot. I mean, some of the strategies that I'm thinking about implementing, actually I heard it on another podcast recently, but like a post-purchase survey. This is the qualitative data that proves out more than your analytics can prove out certain times, because Shopify's data internally doesn't do a great job at attribution or telling you what
No,
the
it doesn't.
source is, right? So Shopify's data, you may as well not even analyze it from a marketing standpoint. Google Analytics comes with its other set of challenges, meaning, um,
Doesn't
unless you're
play well.
yeah,
Doesn't play with Facebook. Right.
yeah, it doesn't Google doesn't play well with others. And so, you have to kind of, if you ask the customer, well, how did you hear about us? You'll know. You'll know truly. Where was your first time you heard about Holy Grail Steak? They're going to tell you, I saw a Facebook ad. Well, I saw a press release. I saw it on a blog, whatever it is.
Right.
So you can immediately understand, well, what things are working and what aren't, because Google Analytics is going to tell you that was a direct customer, but a direct customer didn't appear out of thin air, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. So you're a big proponent of cross analyzing that data, right? Whether it's between Google Analytics and Shopify, I guess, and then even taking those post survey data.
Well, let's say, I don't know if anybody in my company will hear this, is particularly our CFO, but it's like, my whole, it's all selfish reasons. I want to justify every dollar, so they give me more of them. That's all
Right,
I want. I want
right,
more
right.
dollars. I want to, the creative side of me constantly wants to experiment with new technologies, new tools, new creatives, video,
Of course, something that can
pod.
have a real impact. Because now I'm sure the challenge is you've gone through all this growth in the last year, arguably because of COVID, and then obviously now your efforts with retention marketing, email marketing. But it's like, how do you stay on top when you have these systems in place? That's not it. Like, our work's not over as marketers. We need to figure out ways that we can increase brand awareness, increase, the customers that we bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about keeping that funnel full. So we have to figure out, right? Is it putting acquisition dollars towards Facebook and Google ad campaigns, right? So we know we can control those because we can turn them on and off. I'm personally a big proponent of content marketing. I always have been. So, I'm building out and working on updating all of our landing pages, right? They're getting like a complete makeover right now because it's Q1. We have the time to do it, right? I mean, Valentine's Day was a nice holiday for us, but it's not a tentpole holiday. Like Father's Day is coming, right? It's
That's
like
it.
game.
That's your winter, right? Like, winter is coming. That's Father's Day for you guys.
That's it. Father's Day is coming, right? So, Father's Day is coming. It's the one of the biggest things that we'll see, and then obviously holidays. Q4 is just I won't see daylight during Q4.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, that's the stuff that's fun. It's the fun part of the creative process and being able to plan out these tentpole holidays. But you got to have the consistent strategy already set. Like my email marketing calendar is pretty much built out through the entire year. It'll
Right.
shift, it'll morph, it'll change, but I know pretty much what I'm doing. And then, we'll talk to operations and it'll be about, excuse me, it'll be about, well, what products are new in inventory? We get something special coming in, or, like the steak futures, the corned beef, one time hit. We're going to sell that up until St. Patty's Day, and that'll be it. There won't be any more corned beef, right? So,
Right. But it could prove other opportunities now that you've seen that work. You can now kind of dive into, you can change the plan up a little bit, probably go back and ask for some more dollars. It's all in the proof, right? In the data.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's great. So, what's really interesting is that you are this left side and right side of the brain. That's something I really respect about you. I think I'm similar, where like I'm very analytical driven, but I love the creative stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily the practitioner of like filming things. I think you actually have a skill with that because you even had a production company too, right? Like, you've filmed like movies, right? Like indie movies.
Yeah, still do. We're actually trying to find investors to get our independent horror comedy, funded for a full season. We shot a pilot. We crowdfunded for it. That was my first foray into podcasting. We had a
Wow.
podcast. We did like 80 somewhat episodes in the indie film world and made all these relationships with actors and screenwriters and producers and all this type of stuff. And we got three of our guests to come out and film a pilot with us. We crowdfunded $10,000, shot the thing, and now we released it to a private group. We had a couple hundred people view it because we released it during COVID. So it
Right.
was an online screening, but now we have an investor deck and we're out there pitching that stuff. We shot a reality show last year as well, which helped 8 families on Long Island, called Family
Amazing.
Kitchen Revival. So yeah, my creative side, and I'm a musician. So that's always been, I'm
Wow.
so yeah, creatively, I always got these things, and for better or worse, I have a lot of interests, but now, focus is really key. I mean, I've learned that too. Is you really have to focus in on one thing. And distraction is the enemy most days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's another question I have, because
Yeah.
content marketing, I agree with you. It's king right now. Like, if you look at all these brands that are popping up, um, one of them is a Long Island brand. You probably know of them as a foodie, My Cookie Dealer.
Mhm.
Arguably, you know, amazing cookies. I talk about these guys probably too much, but I think that they're a really great case study in content marketing because their whole business is essentially built on organic Instagram posts and people breaking open this half-pound cookie. How hard is it to communicate the value of content to the C-suite? Like, do you feel that that's still a struggle that marketers have?
Yes, absolutely. It's one that it becomes very difficult, especially when there's other efforts in place that are driving dollars, right? So it's like, why do I need this if I have that? And it's the same with other acquisition efforts as well. I think what it comes down to is being able to prove out a really good case for it. When I think about content marketing, there's different varieties of it. Like you mentioned, my cookie dealer, strong Instagram game, right? Local business. So they just got people in a frenzy, and it's, this whole thing. And I think they benefited from COVID as well, because people were dining, eating in and wanted these
Right.
things to treat themselves and all this. My wife bought them. We bought them. We ate them.
I bought them twice. It's bad. I mean, it's talk about lifetime value. They're going to get it out of me for sure.
double workouts on the days you want to eat one of those, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, I lost my train of thought there for a sec, but I think, um, when we're talking about content marketing, I'm personally an advocate for like SEO content marketing. When we're talking about pillar content and subtopics, kind of like the inbound marketing method that HubSpot preaches. Okay,
Okay.
so those are the types of methods that I'm really talking about. I have a great love and value for Instagram and Facebook and that type of content marketing as well, because it builds great awareness at the top of the funnel, and then your engagement also plays into your Facebook ads and things like that. But when I'm talking about content, I'm really talking about this value driven, like we talked about at the top of the interview. Japanese Wagyu. What is it? Do most people know about it? Do they understand it? Right. So we need really good, solid information for people to understand the different grades. So Japanese A5 Wagyu, A5 is the pinnacle, it's the top. It's graded in a certain way based on its marbling and other factors. And so there's other grades. There's A4, A3, A2, right? We only sell A5, right? And so that's important for customers to understand and know, because you can go shop other e-commerce brands and buy Japanese Wagyu. Question is, are they certified? Is it A5? Are they, is it all the things that make it true Japanese Wagyu, or the pinnacle of Japanese Wagyu that we have at Holy Grail?
Right.
And so that becomes an education thing. And so having these pillar pieces of content, like we're in the process of creating, a Wagyu guide, and we're in the process, like I said, of redoing all of our landing pages. So for Japanese Wagyu, the story is very different than American Wagyu. And so explaining those out and the differences between Japanese and American Wagyu. So you have to build all that and explain it all, create good FAQs and list that out. But the reason behind that is because Google loves it. Google loves it.
Yep.
And if Google loves it, and I can rank for those keywords and inbound people for that and get number one page spots for these types of keywords, I don't have to buy them in Google ads, or I can spend less on Google ads, or I can
Yeah.
shift it changes your strategy on spend versus inbound. So yes, there's upfront cost to content marketing and spending to get real writers. I've heard it before, well, we'll have, Tim will write the copy, he's got time on Saturday.
Never the same.
It's never the same, and he's not a writer, and he doesn't understand SEO, and he doesn't understand the structuring of a blog post and the structuring of a pillar piece of content and understanding keyword research and all that type of stuff. So so yes, we justify, and then when we justify to the C-suite why we need it, then we have to prove it. So then we start building it out, showing it, and this is what it looks like, and the traffic and the results end up speaking for themselves. I mean, I've done this before for brands that I've helped in the past, and I'm always confident. I mean, I actually pitched it so hard internally that I said, well, if it was up to me and if it was my company, if you made me a partner tomorrow, I would spend my own dollars to do it. That's how much I believe in it.
Right. Yeah. It makes total sense. And even though SEO is more of a traditional route, it makes more sense to go that direction because you can start measuring it. And then when let's say you're building out that Wagyu article, you could say, it'd be really great if we had if we had a video about this, and you could kind of start sprinkling in the creative, and it will enhance that experience. One, it's going to foster brand loyalty, and two, if you can put that out on social, or just out on YouTube, like you can get real hits and real numbers. So it
Yep.
might be one of those things where you go about it, think about it analytically, get it approved, show some results, and then the creative stuff will just happen around it.
That's right. So that's when we talk about, I mean, Gary V, right? He's the king of it, micro content, right? It's all
Absolutely.
about micro content. So I have to create these long form pieces of content, whether they are written word, videos, doesn't matter, podcast, it doesn't matter, right? You're going to create this podcast and you're going to cut out all sorts of snippets from it and
Oh yeah, we'll divvy it up.
repurpose.
The first episode, we already got 13 clips, right? So those are gonna be 13 different clips. It's gonna go on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, absolutely everywhere.
That's it, right? And
So
that's the strategy. I mean, it's hard. People don't get it. There's companies out there. I don't know if you guys provide that service in terms of micro content or you outsource, but there's companies like Repurpose House that their whole business is around that, taking
pillar
long
pieces of
form,
content and breaking it
popping them
down.
up. Yeah,
Yeah, I've had so we don't do it too much for companies. We do it internally.
yeah.
So for me, almost all of my advertising dollars that I spend is on my videographer and just redoing content. Now, you know, we also make ads for companies too. So it works out. But we don't really offer like the micro content really as a service right now. Just because we're trying to stay like very defined with paid media management user experience, but you never know,
Yeah.
and I know I believe in it. Like I spend my money on it. I don't, it's a lot, but it's worth it to me. And it builds a brand experience. And I get people saying, we did choose you guys because we saw your videos.
Yeah,
And I don't
absolutely.
have thousands of views. I know that. I have a few hundred views every video, but it does
Don't
make a
need them.
difference.
Yep.
So,
Don't need them when you're playing. Always depends on the pond you're playing in, right? It's what do you really need? I mean, I'm working. So I produce a podcast for somebody else, and
okay,
we're working towards getting it launched. And so, that audience, it's a small niche audience. Like we're not trying to get 100,000 downloads per episode. It's not the goal. We only want to make sure we're laser targeted at the core audience. That's it.
absolutely.
So
It just needs to matter to someone. You don't have to be, you want to be something to someone, not
mhm.
everything to no one.
Yeah, I
But
mean, unless you want to
that's
be a
the thing.
celebrity, unless you're Matthew McConaughey, then you want to be then you're everyone,
Yep,
right?
or
It's
The
just,
Rock, exactly. But those instances are very few and far between, and we don't have those marketing dollars that they have access to, like the Terramana launch, which was absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if you followed that at all, but The Rock's tequila, they did over like 300 million cases. It's the largest spirit launch in history. It's bigger
I
than
missed.
Casamigos, so um, pretty
Wow,
insane.
wow. I want to look that up now. I'm really super curious. I didn't hear about it. I guess I've been too busy working with steak. I didn't hear about
There, yeah, you got to
it.
start looking at tequila though. There might be a good market there.
Whew, wow, crazy. Wow, yeah. I got to look that up. I'm super interested now.
Awesome. So listen, Sal, what I want to do now is I want to do have a little game on Marketing Mindshare. It's actually business and steak. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is uh, we're going to pair different pieces of steaks with different scenarios in businesses. So that might mean I'm taking the CEO out to dinner, or I'm just bringing a colleague, inviting them over to my house. But we're going to talk about a few pieces of steak that we've chosen from Holy Grail Steaks, and you'll let us know. You'll give us a little bit of food knowledge on. You'll drop that on us because I don't know too much about steak.
All right, we'll see how we do. I don't know.
I'm confident. All right, so we're getting into business and steak. So my team went in and we actually picked a few pieces of steak that we thought we would want. The problem is we have no idea in what business scenario what we're going to pair these steaks with. So as our resident steak expert, you're going to help us out.
You got it.
Okay. Okay. So the first is an American Wagyu. I would say that first word, but I don't even know how to pronounce it in all honesty.
Hmm.
Um, So this on your website right now, it's a 16-ounce steak for $59. Probably one of the cheaper steaks. So can you tell us a little bit about the steak maybe and what type of scenario that we would get this steak?
Sure. Well, not knowing which other steaks are coming up, I mean, the Akiyushi American Wagyu, this is a ribeye. This ribeye steak is one of our most popular cuts, right? So, I mean, I think what you can do with this steak is really have it at home for a special occasion, get the boys together, if you're having, even client, depending on how you're working with clients these days and things like
Yeah,
that. If you can have a client over for a nice dinner, maybe double date with your client and his wife and you and your wife or a girlfriend and have a nice dinner, at home. The Akiushi American Wagyu ribeye, is a great place to start with Holy Grail for sure.
perfect. I love that. And we're going to assume that this is going to be post-pandemic because we're trying to look for a brighter future. And I think this is going to be a great way to facilitate business. And I think we're going to enter like this interesting period where people want to get together. So I think
Of course.
this is a really good
Well,
idea to maybe make happen.
that being said, if you had to, as in the business you're in, right, client gifts. I mean, these make great client gifts as well.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Yes.
The
There
Kobe
we go.
Wagyu.
Yes. You don't have the price tag on that one?
Let's see. I don't have the price tag on this one.
Gotcha. I'm going to assume that that one is going to be one of the pinnacles that, this is what we talk about when Kobe beef from Japan, A5 ribeye. This is one of the most exclusive, expensive steaks around.
Okay.
So you may want to make sure that when you're cooking one of these, and by the way, a 13 to 15 ounce steak, if you're used to eating steak and normally you would say, oh, I'll eat a ribeye that's 12, 15 ounces on my own, not the same. If you see it all, it's all about the marbling here, right? This fat content that
Yeah.
basically melts down like butter. It
Wow.
actually, even to your fingers, to the touch, it will start to soften. So in that case, my mouth is watering just thinking about it. But the point is, a little goes a long way. So you could have something like this and make it shareable. But you really want to make sure you're sharing it with somebody special. It's got to be a special occasion, and it's got to be the right time. Unless you have the means. If this could be your weekend steak, then go for that too.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. And I think that'd be so if I'm cooking this, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I gotta really know a good recipe then. Like I gotta make sure I know how to cook a steak or
The most simple treatment possible for one of these. So you don't want to start loading up these
oh,
Kobe Wagyus with all kinds of sauces and I mean, a little bit of salt, a little bit of, you don't even need butter in the pan, like I said, because the fat is just gonna melt away in there on its own. So really, you really want the most simple treatment and let the meat speak for itself in this scenario. Um, I think it's all about the beef in this instance. So,
awesome. Okay, let's
and
see. Oh,
a good cast iron skillet. That's really what you need.
cast iron skillet. All
Yeah,
right.
you need.
We'll have to pick up one of those too. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess we missed the price on that last one, but this is a dry aged double tomahawk. This is a gift pack. So you get two steaks with this one.
Yep.
And I've heard a lot about tomahawk steaks, but I just don't know in what scenario I should get that tomahawk versus that wagyu.
Sure. So yeah, this is something. Tomahawks are very manly, right? So at the end of the day, something you're going to want to share. I actually have a tomahawk sitting in my freezer. I'm waiting to have boys' night at my house when it's safe to do so. Even if we can just be outside in distance, that'd be fine. And I just want to get that over a really good open fire on the grill. I want to get it, really nicely, get some good grill marks on it. Same thing. Now, tomahawk, you can have a little more leeway with. This is not one of our Japanese Wagyu dry aged double tomahawk. So it's dry aged, which means it sits and develops a more unique flavor, right? So dry aging the meat, like if you go to a really expensive steakhouse, this is something you're going to find at a Rothman's or uh, a Peter Luger's, right? They're going to
Yeah,
have dry aged steaks on their menu. And so this is the type of experience you can now have at home with a tomahawk and really enjoy it. If you're leery about going out to dinner, I know a lot of people are, this is the type of thing you can do at home for a special occasion, or again, this is a gift pack. We have lots of gift packs and flights. That's one of the things core to our company is gift giving. So, we have tons of those that meet different price budgets and different types of, we have ones that you can explore all different types of cuts. We have ones that just do ribeyes and strips, which are our favorite, customer favorite cuts. So we have something for everybody on the site for sure.
awesome. That's perfect too. So and this one, I think a lot of people that golf, like this is like a big golfer thing too. It's like after you play a round of golf, you get one of these, you put them on the grill, and you just kind of enjoy it with everyone. So
Absolutely. And they're so flavorful, and the bone makes for a great presentation that you have there and all that stuff. So yeah.
absolutely, yeah, for sure. I think it's a good mix of trying to impress somebody, and also just being able to throw something on the grill. Maybe you don't have to worry too much about getting the right pan and having a great steak.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't screw it up too bad. I mean, I always have my meat thermometer handy because I like to cook to the perfect temps. I like mine medium rare, so I only go to about, 130, 135 on the steak internal, and that's about it. then you got to, and always let it rest. You got to let that steak rest for 10 minutes when it comes off a grill or a pan. Always let it rest before you cut it.
That's a professional tip right there.
That's pro tips. You can go look. You should take Gordon Ramsay's masterclass.
I might have to, honestly, but Sal, thank you. That was Business and Steaks with Sal Conca, CMO of Holy Grail Steaks. Thank you for being on the show, Sal. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Dean. It's always a pleasure. You and I have had a great relationship over the last couple of years, and really happy to see what you're doing. I can't wait to see the rest of the podcasts and the insights that your other guests will bring to the table.
It's going to be good. And where can people find out a little bit more about you? Because obviously you have your own podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you reach out to me on LinkedIn. Anybody can just find me, Sal Conca, Conca, on LinkedIn. The Big Food Talk, the podcast that's there, is at bigfoodtalk.com. And to check out Holy Grail, it's holygrailsteak.com. So
Perfect. Thank you.
you got it, guys.